And now, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. He's a successful entrepreneur, published author, top listing agent, a real estate and finance expert that goes to bat for you every day as a consumer advocate. Your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
And yes, here we are again another day, committed to being your consumer advocate, helping you understand your buying decisions, making you more street smart here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Check us out online, consumerqb.com. Got a great lineup for you today. We've got attorney Carmika Rubin in the house, also Anthony Rickman, attorney Anthony Rickman, the Rickman Law Firm, and we're going to kick it off with Diane VANCE. We're going to talk about a study. National Association of Realtors did a study, and of course it talks about the low inventory, the lack of construction, lack of affordable housing, and how it's hurting the middle class as well here on the show. So we got a great lineup for you here on the program, and I'm also a member of the Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment Division. So it's a new division that we just jumped out. So looking for contacts out there if you are related into the sports field, entertainment. Of course, we're working through our movie production company as well to really bring in some exciting stuff there as well that we are doing with Captain Will Smith falling from the sky and David Yates and the folks out there in the community. So appreciate that. And want to let you know about a couple of our hot listings. You know, the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. We're a top 1% ranked real estate team here in Tampa Bay. We got a property at 5014 Pompano Drive. This is a waterfront beauty. You've got a pool home, corner lot, fenced-in backyard, bay access on one of the deepest and widest and largest canals in the area. This Gulf Harbors. It's a beautiful property at Pompano. 5014 Pompano Drive, completely renovated property, 1,700 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, waterfront with bay access, pool home, huge lot, circle drive. Too many things to list here at Pompano Drive waterfront property. You can see all of our great listings, 45 plus listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com.
God is great, beer is good, and people are crazy.
All right, so I want to thank one of our sponsors here. We also want to give a shout out to Victor and his team over at Chad Irrigation. They do a great job here in Tampa Bay for our real estate properties. Victor at Chad Irrigation. If you're adding sprinklers, if you want to access a well, reach out to Victor and his team right here in Tampa Bay, longtime friends of the Consumer Quarterback Show. All right, we got Diane VANCE back on the program, longtime friend of the program here, DianeVance.com, Fairway Independent Mortgage, and Diane, low inventory, that's the theme. Rates are kind of trickling up.
Yes. Well, if anybody listened to the CPI report today on Squawk Box, it came out higher than expected. Claims for unemployment are down. There is inflation, so of course, what does that bring? That brings about some higher interest rates. Interest rates have increased, but they're still affordable and they're still very good. They're almost to what they were about the time of pandemic, right around there. And so, you know, people, again, it's supply and demand. That's what causes the interest. Well, that's what causes everything to raise, right? Mm-hmm. So if you don't have enough supply to meet the demand, which is an issue, then of course, then there are higher prices that come, and with that comes inflation. So yes, interest rates. Now the housing market is always the one that actually, you know, helps us in any type of a economic situation. They are the leader. Housing and real estate is the number one leader as far as, you know, when we do get into situations, that's what brings us out of things, you know, like recessions. We are not in a recession, but we certainly are in an inflationary period, so they want to slow down the inflation if they can. Now, who knows, after, you know, we get back to normalcy, which it seems like we are starting to do that, then maybe some of that, you know, some of these things that are out in the Pacific Ocean, some of these items that we need will start coming in, and it may end up, the supply and demand may actually slow down a little bit. But in housing, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and it's a great time to get out of renting and start owning if you're in that position. We'll talk about a rent versus own in a little bit. I want to play this clip here. I got a clip that I played from, I think it's the Morning Wire, put out by Daily Wire, home price study by the National Association of Realtors.
So, Charlotte, we're hearing a lot about the housing crisis. What are you seeing? Well, home prices are definitely surging nationwide, and it's affecting the middle class and young millennial families disproportionately. One study from the National Association of Realtors, released on Monday, showed how the rise in the cost of homes and a steep drop in supply is impacting Americans. What the study found was that at the end of 2021, there were around 411,000 fewer houses on the market in the price range for buyers earning between 75 and 100,000 compared to before the pandemic. There was only one affordable listing for every 24 households at the end of 2019. But by the end of 2021, the options were even worse, with only one available listing for every 65 households.
So the middle class was really squeezed.
So yeah, that's a quick clip there. So yeah, and again, these are national numbers. These are nationwide. This is not specifically to Tampa Bay and the Gulf Coast region of Florida, which is primarily our listening audience. We can help you nationwide, worldwide through our Keller Williams network and also through Diane's network. We've got an extensive reach. But what's your reaction to that? 411,000 less homes nationwide, and then one for every 65 households, middle class squeezed.
Yeah, there's definitely, again, we go back to supply and demand, and it's caused the prices to increase on new construction and existing homes. So as it appreciates, then what happens is exactly what you talked about. It gets more expensive, and the people that can afford it, it's less and less, so they get squeezed out.
Right.
But if they are renting, they probably need to really think about buying. If at all possible, the sooner you do it, the better. Now, of course, you have to find a property. You have to be prepared. And that's what we try to do. We have a program that prepares the customers so that they can compete against some of those cash offers. We get them fully approved, get a commitment letter from them, from our underwriting department, so that when the realtor presents it to the seller, then they know there's no question about the buyer. It's just a matter of, appraisal and title work and things like that. So we're trying to do everything we can to put the buyer in a good place to be able to purchase now. I talk to people all the time, and they're asking, hey, do you think prices will come down? And I'm like, I don't think so.
Right.
There's a shortage of houses.
That's right.
So, even without, so much, even if people were selling their houses right now, a lot of people, even if we had it almost equal, there's still a shortage of houses because there's not enough houses being built. Again, it's all back to supply and demand. And the demand is very high and the supply is low. So a lot of those people a lot of people that do own a home aren't moving, or they aren't ready to move yet. So it's definitely it's a problem for the middle class. They need to, hopefully they will do something. There's some assistance out there, and I've heard some other assistance that they're talking about. But the same thing is happening in the rent. The rent space is, again, it's supply and demand. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of people that want to rent, and they're building more and more apartments, but they're expensive. So, the rent has went up. So it's really very difficult for middle class right now.
Something I want to add to that, Diane, too. It's to a certain extent, it's a natural supply and demand, but to a certain extent, it's not natural supply and demand. And what I mean by that is some of these hedge funds that are getting, preferential treatment from the federal government relating to their ESG scores. They are getting these low interest rate loans, 0 to nothing % loans. And then I'm talking specifically about BlackRock, Blackstone, those types of companies. They're coming in, buying up inventory because they know that real estate's the safest bet. It's an insurable asset, et cetera. And then they're coming in and raising the rates, jacking up the rents for these low and middle income earners that can't afford them. And not to mention, you're beating out veterans who are trying to buy with 100% financing, or maybe you're beating out a first-time home buyer who's trying to buy and get their first home. And then, of course, the realtors and the homeowners, they're saying, hey, if I'm entertaining offers, this cash looks pretty good when I can close in 2 weeks.
What's interesting, though, Brandon, about that is I actually had a customer that he was a first-time home buyer, and the seller got one of those offers, right? It was a cash offer that was higher. Because of exactly what you talked about, he decided to take our customer's offer, even though it wasn't as high as the cash offer, because of that reason.
Nice. I love that. I mean, there you go. That you talk about a moral and an ethical standing. That's a great seller. I'd love to, have more of those,
Yeah. And that's, Yeah, so what the buyers can do is be in the best light they can and have a good realtor negotiate for them. And a lot of times it's just negotiation and perseverance and, those type of things. I mean, a lot of times it's who's your realtor and, what is the offer and how does it look? And, I always will call listing agents to, not talk personally about details of the buyer, but tell them that I don't give approvals until we have everything documented.
Right.
So, so they're more comfortable. Not everybody does that, so not everybody is comfortable with that, but we take it one step further and we actually take them into a fully approved program. So that they can have a full commitment letter. So it's that's what needs to be done now. It's a very it's funny. I have so many pre-approved buyers, but they can't find houses right now, or they end up doing it eventually. You just can't give up. You just have to keep persevering because eventually you will actually get an offer. And I've seen that time and time again.
Yeah. You got to be diligent, looking at late night, looking in the morning, try to be the first one there, put these offers in. You got to have a great realtor that knows how to utilize certain addendums and escalation clauses, lots of things that you can do. We're talking with Diane VANCE, Fairway Independent Mortgage here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. She's our finance expert, mortgage expert here, number 3, the top 3 lender in the country, doing a ton of volume, great rates, great programs, and excellent customer service. We get nothing but 100% great feedback for folks that are working with DianeVance.com. Diane VANCE here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. So I wanted to catch on, talk about one item too. So you've got the catch-22, right? So sellers that are saying, hey, gosh, I'm taking my home off the market. I always call FSBOs and expireds, and that I have that conversation a lot. Hey, we couldn't find anything, so now we're taking our home off the market. So that's a catch-22, and it's also another hit against our inventory. So we lost an inventory because we don't have enough inventory.
Exactly, and I hear that all the time. Like I'll have customers that get pre-approved, and they put their house on the market, and then after they go out and they start looking, and they're like, okay, it's taking me too long to find a place. And, it's like, you're right, it's catch-22 situation. But again, you just have to, the thing is I find this all the time, is when they're ready to sell, typically they eventually sell. It's just, there's a reason that they actually want to sell. It's just, if they can't find something, and what usually happens, at least what I see, is they find something they like, they go out and make the offer, and then it's a rush to get their house sold. But, hey, it usually sells pretty quick.
Right, and that's the thing you want to avoid, is try to have these things lined up and do it in a proper procedure. We're talking with Diane VANCE, Fairway Independent Mortgage. Diane, final thought here about the renters versus owning, and you have some great programs where you can help, and people can even text into the show hotline. We'll give that text line number out, the 813-917-1894. Every time we do, we get people texting in, hey, I've got this much in rent. I'd like to get into ownership, so I love that. Can you talk about that, and then we'll have a call to action?
Of course. Yes. So rent versus own, basically, if you tell me how much your rent is, give me your email. I can actually send you a comparison of how much purchase power you would actually have. So if you take, it's income tax time, you can use that for the down payment. Typically you have a deposit. You can use that for part of the down payment. So there's different ways. There's some programs out there that help you. But definitely the rent is the thing is, with ownership, you're building your own equity. In renting, you're building somebody else's equity.
Yeah, and that's the short version of it, and there's a lot of other reasons why you can't throw your own house parties. You can't have, you can't
decorate
certain color, et cetera, and add a fence, and you do the improvements. And I think that's kind of like the tragedy of the commons. When people are renting, they're kind of in a certain mindset. When they own, it's a completely different paradigm shift that they go through, and they're saying, hey, this is mine. I own it. I want to dress it up. I want to make it look great. I want to go to the hardware store and buy some, add a pool to. You're going to improve the property. You're just going to have that much better of a feel about life when you think about owning versus renting. You're building about equity, tax implications. So go ahead and text the word rent to 813-917-1894. We'll put the plan together for you. We've done this for hundreds, thousands of people over the years, and we can definitely help you go through that. No matter what you're thinking, oh, well, I've got bad credit, or I've got this issue. Reach out, 813-917-1894. Call or text the hotline, rent versus own analysis, and just text the word rent to our hotline. We'll make sure we take great care of you. All right, Diane, thanks so much for joining us. And you want people to hit you up at DianeVance.com?
Yep, I have an application on there, and it actually automatically, whatever you answer, it'll automatically have you upload your documents, and I'll have a pre-approval to you fairly quickly after that. So.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a great day. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. You as well. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got criminal defense attorney Anthony Rickman in the house. Attorney Anthony Rickman, the Rickman Law Firm here on the program. I'm going to talk about one of the latest clips, too. I'm going to play from Governor Ron DeSantis, just coming out yesterday, about the school system, and more with Anthony Rickman coming up right after this short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to my daddy's show. For more information, go to consumerqb.com.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com.
Hey, Brandon Rhymes here for Cleaning Commandos here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Cleaning Commandos are hiring, and they're offering competitive wages, flexible hours, relaxed atmosphere, and a sign-on bonus. Reach out if you'd like a career with the Cleaning Commandos here in Tampa Bay. Info at cleaningcommandosllc.com or call 813-750-0550, 813-750-0550. Cleaning Commandos, Consumer Quarterback Show. Hey, Brandon Rhymes here. We are looking for real estate investors. We've got a new relationship bringing us a tremendous amount of off-market real estate investment opportunities. So text the word investor to our hotline, 813-750-0550. Off-market real estate investment opportunities. Text investor to 813-750-0550. Brandon Rhymes here, Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty, looking for real estate investors. Send us a text. Have you desired more income and more freedom in your life? Now is your time. Keller Williams Realty has just launched our own real estate school, and you can get licensed for free. I'm Brandon Rhymes, host of the Consumer Quarterback Show, owner of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. And for the first 3 people who reach out, I will personally coach you. 813-917-1894. Call or text 813-917-1894. ConsumerQB.com. ConsumerQB.com.
You're listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Online at consumerqb.com. Brandon is Tampa Bay's #1 consumer advocate for real estate and financial advice. Call Brandon today at 813-917-1894.
And we're back. Brandon Rhymes here. Consumer Quarterback Show powered by the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. Top 1% ranked real estate team here in Tampa Bay, helping you sell faster, profit more. On the buy side, we're going to expert representation, and we're going to help you get that contract accepted. We've got a hot property listing that we'd like to feature our listings live on air. 14121 7th Street in Dade City. This is a great opportunity. Check this out. It's a $650,000 offer for a restaurant. We got a restaurant that has a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment built in. You've got 2 floors here, so you've got dining down below. You've got a banquet hall upstairs. This is a great opportunity at $650,000. Beautiful property. It's an established restaurant since 1990. Dade City. It's downtown, so you've got the walkability, plenty of parking as well. 2 dining rooms. You got a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and the sale includes the furniture, the fixtures, the equipment. Everything goes. So looking for that entrepreneur out there, and it's an entrepreneurial investment opportunity. 14121 7th Street, Dade City. You can see all of our listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com.
This is God's country.
And a quick shout out to the Golf Cart Depot, formerly known as Golf Cart Depot, that is. It's Discovery Golf Cars for recreation or business. It seems like everybody's getting a golf car these days. You got the E-Z-Go Star EV Cushman. They offer new and pre-owned, and you can rent or buy. Check them out online, discoverygolfcars.com. Make sure you let them know the real estate quarterback sent you. All right, attorney Anthony Rickman back in studio. Good to see you, man.
Brandon, thanks for having me back.
My pleasure. So criminal defense, a big topic, interesting topic. You know, you've got all these different cases. Anything happening like locally?
Well, yeah, there's that. By the way, you can get a DUI on a golf cart.
Okay.
People think that you can drive a golf cart and not get pulled over. I represented defendants charged with DUI on a golf cart. So your golf cart depot, you mentioned it. Be careful. People think you can have a beer or drink, drive a golf cart. You can still get a DUI on a golf cart, on a bike, on scooters. That's going to be a new thing, those motorized scooters we see around downtown. But, new and interesting in our world, we got the Curtis Reeves trial going on right now.
Yeah.
Jury selection. That case has been going on for forever. I mean, it seems like 8 years. And that's the movie theater shooting where the retired homicide detective shot the alleged victim over a popcorn fight. Is what the media, the big buzz is. You're bringing a gun to a popcorn fight. And it's interesting how that case is going to pan out. We know there's been a lot of litigation on stand your ground motion, a lot of issues with that case. And it's, 8 years later, finally going to trial.
Wow.
I mean, think about that.
Why is it taking so long?
People imagine that now. People on the jury, get an 18-year-old in a jury. They were 10 years old when this shooting happened.
Right. And
now they're potential jurors. That's how long. And, defense did a great job in doing pretrial motions, litigating this case, keeping their client potentially out of prison for 8 years, an elderly man. A lot of things happened in our system. We had COVID. COVID stalled our system. We had about 2 years of a moratorium of trials. There was a stand your ground motion that was, litigated, multi-week stand your ground motion. The judge took about 3 months to rule. Then the defense appealed. Then stand your ground law changed. It was originally the defendant had the burden of proving that they were in reasonable fear. Stand your ground law is now changed, where the state has to prove that the defendant wasn't in fear for his life. So we saw an appeal, whether or not that law applied retroactively. And ultimately, the court said no. It didn't apply retroactively. It applies now. So when you talk about the appeals, the hundreds of witnesses, the thousands of documents of discovery, the motions, the COVID, 8 years later, this is what we see.
Yeah.
Despite that, it's a real long time.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, it's finally going to trial. They're picking a jury now. As we speak, they're trying to select jurors for that case.
What's the latest on the Alec Baldwin?
Alec Baldwin, it's still, he's still pending. I know he turned over his cell phone. I have cases like that here in Florida. I'm actually working on one right now. And, when you talk about culpable negligence or culpable negligent manslaughter, what the courts have to look at and what the courts look in those cases is not just at the result alone, being a death. Most of these cases, manslaughter cases, they're not intentional cases. It's not a situation where someone puts out a gun, thinks it's loaded, and pulls the trigger and kills you. That's murder.
Yeah.
A manslaughter is doing an act that one would reasonably foresee would cause death or serious bodily injury. And in doing that act, they engage something called culpable negligence. It's gross negligence. When you look at Alec Baldwin, you look at these cases, you understand that Florida law or no law, criminal law wasn't designed to punish accidents. Criminal law was designed to punish intentional acts or culpably negligent acts, which are equivalent in the law's mind to an intentional act. And when you look at the surrounding circumstances of this case, for instance, Alec Baldwin, you can't just look at the result of the death. You have to look at the circumstances that surrounded it. What steps did he take to assure that that firearm wasn't loaded? What steps did he have in his mind that made him reasonably believe it wasn't loaded? For instance, you can have cases where somebody checks the gun. They look in the chamber. They don't see a projectile. They don't see a cartridge. They think the gun's not loaded, and they go to clean it, or they go to put it down, or something happens, and it discharges and kills somebody. That's different than somebody who's drunk or high, screwing around with the gun, and he kills the guy next to him.
Right.
So just because there's a death doesn't mean that it's criminal. It may be negligent. It may be civilly negligent. It may be wrong. It may be an accident. It may be stupid.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, on a criminal case, they have to prove that culpable or gross negligence.
Right.
Alec Baldwin, you look at his circumstances. He was handed the gun. I know it's his set. He's the producer. He's charged. So he has a higher degree of responsibility. They're going to look at that.
That's right.
But he's not trained in firearms. He's an actor.
Yep.
And he got handed a gun. He's going to say, I had no idea. I assumed that the person who handed it to me gave it to me knowing that it was unloaded. I'm just an actor. Did what I was told. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be very hard to prove a criminal charge against Alec Baldwin at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think civilly, he's in trouble. Yeah. Civilly, his production company, everything around him civilly is in bad shape. They're going to crumble.
Yeah.
But on the criminal side, I don't see him being criminally prosecuted.
Yeah. And I wonder if it comes down to also having these different handbooks and the employee code of conducts and the handbook, all those types of things that make it say, hey, here's a gun. Here's our procedures around these guns. Those types of things, too.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, look, when you receive a firearm, you're going to check. You're going to make sure it's not loaded.
Yeah.
They're going to look at those things, see if he acted outside that scope.
All right, more to come. Anthony Rickman here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. We're going to talk about Governor Ron DeSantis and his latest bill that he's talking about with dealing with children in schools. So we're going to talk about that more with Anthony Rickman, criminal defense attorney, right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Follow us online at Brandon Rhymes1 on Instagram, Twitter, and Getter, and YouTube at Brandon Rhymes Realty. We'll be right back.
This is Chris Voss, former FBI lead hostage negotiator and owner of the Black Swan Group. and you're listening to Consumer Quarterback Show hosted by my friend Brandon Rhymes.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com.
Johnny, you ready? All right, in that case, everyone please stand by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to the Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
And welcome back here, Consumer Quarterback Show. Brandon Rhymes. We've got attorney Anthony Rickman in the house at the rickmanlawfirm.com. And before we jump back into this content, we're going to let you know about a couple of hot listings that we've got here in Tampa Bay. I've got a property listed at 820 Pinellas Avenue in Tarpon Springs. You have the walkability here. This is a commercial lot on a corner lot location, 820 Pinellas Avenue, Tarpon Springs. And it's a great opportunity to move your business. Could potentially be an attorney's office, real estate, mortgage, title, insurance, etc., professional office right here in the heart of Tarpon Springs. Walk to restaurants, walk to the sponge stops, and enjoy all of that you have to have in that downtown Tarpon Springs area. You can see all of our listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com. All right, so we got Anthony Rickman in the house, the Rickman Law Firm. We were just kind of talking a bit about, the stand your ground opportunity in the Alec Baldwin case. I wanted to play a quick clip here from the Governor DeSantis and kind of get your take on it.
We've seen instances of students being told by different folks in school, don't worry, don't pick your gender yet, do all this other stuff. They won't tell the parents about these discussions that are happening. That is entirely inappropriate.
And that's I agree with that. It's inappropriate. There's like these clandestine activities happening, these plans and communications about serious sexuality with these young kids before they even get to that, and they're very influential when they're in those early grades and those early formative years.
No, without a doubt, and it's the age-old question: when does a teacher's role exceed a teacher's role, and when should a parent have the right and responsibility to tell their kids about sexuality, tell their kids about gender and these type of things? And when you're in a school setting, it's put there. It's almost forced down your child's throat. And as a parent, what the governor is saying is parents should have the right to determine the type of education their child receives, specifically, as it relates to sexuality. Look, I remember growing up myself, the question was, when should you have sex ed? Should sex ed be something that your teacher gives you at school versus your parents giving you at home? And I understand there's a scientific part of it. Yeah. There's the health class that we all sat through and giggled about in 7th grade. I mean, there's that end of it, which is medical, which is health class. But at the same time, when do you start talking about sexuality in the form of genders, in the form of LGBTQ? At what age do you do it? Do you do it in 1st grade? Do you do it in kindergarten? I mean, these kids barely even know their bodies. Yeah. And to have a teacher explaining it, the governor is trying to put his foot down. But then the question becomes, as a conservative, as a Republican, where do you draw the line? Mm-hmm. As conservatives, we believe in limited government. Mm-hmm. Do we need a law to tell you as a teacher what you can and can't say? Right. Or should this just be done internally? Is there another way to do it? When we talk about over legislation now, even as conservatives, we have to be careful that we're not over legislating, that we're not creating too many laws, because that's what we stand against. As conservatives stand against big government, big brother, government being on your throat. But now we want to potentially overregulate, or make laws that creates a bigger government. Because what's the sanction? What are you going to do if a teacher comes out and she says these things against this law? Are you going to arrest the teacher? So we have to look at the end game, because we know there's laws and rules for teachers, and they violate them all the time.
But I think what this one's doing is opening it up to a civil matter or something where you can sue the court. But I think what problem is too with that is you have this wokeism going farther than it's ever gone before, and you've got like in what happened in VA, when they were hiding the rape cases and moving this kid around. I mean, it gets to that extreme.
No, without a doubt, and it seems to be we're okay with your opinion as long as your opinion is our opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, and then if you have an opposite opinion, you're getting canceled. You're not woke. You're not enlightened enough. And there is a problem with that. There needs to be transparency what happens in the classroom, without a doubt. And if the bill focuses more on transparency, I think it has a much better result of being successful.
Right.
If it focuses on transparency as opposed to saying don't do this, but we want to know what's doing. Yeah. And then giving the parents the choice and the right to say, hey, we don't want my child engaged in this because it's not health class.
Right.
It's not science.
Yep.
This is this teacher's potential, opinion that may be against it. That you may have parents and families who don't feel it's right for their child to learn these things in first or second grade or wherever grade they may be in.
Yeah, even on up to middle school. I mean, they're so influential. All right, we're talking with Anthony Rickman here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. What else is topical? What do you want to talk about here?
Well, look, I mean, we, for my world, the criminal justice system. I mean, we see, every day, different arrests, different type of cases, and people, calling me, asking me, what do I do? What are my rights? And that's one of the biggest things that I get, when, the types of investigations. And we talk about, sexuality. One of the biggest things I see now are allegations of sexual misconduct, whether it be sexual misconduct in the workplace, whether it be sexual misconduct or an allegation of that, at a doctor's office, physician, whether it be college students under Title IX or something else related to sexual misconduct. In this world we live in, we've lived through the Me Too era. We lived through, things where people go out. It's a different world than we grew up in. You go out to a restaurant or bar, you meet a significant other, they have buyer's remorse, and you know what happens? The person who they have buyer's remorse against, who they may have consented to have sex, they're both drunk.
Yeah.
You got buyer's remorse, and now you're going to have that person arrested on a potential sexual battery. And what the state's doing is they're charging it as physically helpless or unable to consent because they're drunk. And I had a deposition recently where I asked a detective, I said, look, my client was drunk. The alleged victim was also drunk.
Yeah.
Why do you arrest my client and not the alleged victim?
Right.
If they're both drunk.
Right.
Why? Because she went to the police after the fact. And, and we live in a different world now where people need to be careful in things that they do. It's not, going out to the bar and, picking up a significant other and the ramifications of that could be far reaching for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
One night of going out and hooking up can result in you being locked up. Yeah. And it's really crazy what's become of these cases.
Yeah, and especially if you add social media to that, you're snapping a couple pictures here and there, compromising photos. I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
Without a doubt. I mean, don't ever take a picture that you don't want the whole world to see.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a new world that we live in. And when you talk about that, a second thing, if you're accused, if you're being investigated, be careful. Be careful what you tell law enforcement. Be careful if you even talk to law enforcement. I tell everybody if you get confronted by a detective, you have every right to remain silent. Go talk to a lawyer before you give any statement. Because there are cases where I tell my clients, let's have a sit down. Let's go meet with the prosecutor. Let's go meet with the detective. Let's explain to them what happened. Let's show them your evidence. But let's do it in a setting where I can control it.
Right.
As opposed to you sitting there and giving a statement to a detective.
Yeah.
Whatever you say can and will be used against you.
Right.
Even if you think it's helping you, law enforcement, if they have a theory, if they have an angle, they will find a way to use it against you. And that especially applies in these type of cases where you have an allegation of something that wasn't consensual, that may have been consensual, or something that didn't happen at all.
Right.
I mean, and we see... people have motive to lie. People have motive to make things up.
Exactly.
And it's not to say that rape doesn't happen.
Right.
That is not to say that, sexual assault doesn't happen. Not to say people drug or get people drunk, but there are cases where it doesn't.
Yeah.
Where, you have consenting adults and for whatever reason, one person says it wasn't consensual.
I think there needs to be a law out there. If it's proven that you brought false charges against this person and he gets off, and many times it is the he that's under the false pretenses, then you need to serve the time that he was going to serve if he was found guilty.
Without a doubt. And those laws are in effect, but they're very rarely used. And, when you talk about it, the reason is the court says we don't want what's called the chilling effect.
Yeah.
And the chilling effect is we don't want people who are victimized
to
feel like they can get in trouble because they felt uncomfortable about it.
Yeah.
But what about the chilling effect for a person whose mugshot can never be removed from the internet?
That's right.
What about the chilling effect for a guy who has to explain to his wife or his children why he got locked up, or his family, or mother or father, as to why this false allegation was raised? Because you can't unring the bell.
Yeah.
I do a lot of media. Very rarely does the media turn around and say, hey, by the way, that story we put up there with your client, we were wrong.
Yeah.
Look, Grady Judd, love the man, hate the man, whatever it is. He throws press conferences for giving us speeding tickets. Okay. Yeah. He will throw a press conference for everything. I have never heard him give a press conference and say, hey, I charged this guy. I showed his picture on our press conference. I said all these things about him. And by the way, the state dropped his charges.
Yeah.
You're never going to see that.
Right.
But what happens is you Google that person's name, you Google that person's information, you're going to see that press conference.
Yeah.
You're going to see the bad things that was said about that person. So you can't unring the bell.
Yeah.
And it's very important to protect your rights when you're in a situation confronted by law enforcement, accused, arrested, even before then. I have people say, come to me and they say, well, what should I do? Hire a lawyer right away.
Yeah.
You may spend a little money, you may do that, but you're protecting yourself. Don't wait for the state to charge you.
Right.
Don't wait for the detectives to arrest you. Get in front of it. Provide, have an attorney, be your advocate. As a lawyer, I don't just represent you in court. I advocate for you before we get to court.
Because they're also out there probably with a private investigator following you, gathering information. If you think there's something coming, reach out to Anthony, Anthony Rickman, therickmanlawfirm.com, and they can get a consultation from you.
Yep, call me anytime. Therickmanlawfirm.com. Hit the contact me. Call me, 813-999-0502, 24 hours a day. I'm like a doctor. I answer my phone all the time.
Awesome, man. Good stuff. Thanks for coming in, and we'll see you next time. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we've got attorney Carmika Rubin in the house as well. We're going to talk about contract law and business law and what types of businesses you need and how to, when you're forming a business, what types of contracts to get into. So stay with us right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, plus our feel-good story of the day. Find out about this Polk County community, how it drew together to help this boy that got hit by a car. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Ken Shamrock, and you're here with Consumer Quarterback Show. And I say, Brandon Rhymes, knock out your competition.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com.
Hey, Brandon Rhymes here. We are looking for real estate investors. We've got a new relationship bringing us a tremendous amount of off-market real estate investment opportunities. So text the word investor to our hotline, 813-750-0550. Off-market real estate investment opportunities. Text investor to 813-750-0550. Brandon Rhymes here, Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty, looking for real estate investors. Send us a text. Hey, Brandon Rhymes here for Cleaning Commandos here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Cleaning Commandos are hiring, and they're offering competitive wages, flexible hours, relaxed atmosphere, and a sign-on bonus. Reach out if you'd like a career with the Cleaning Commandos here in Tampa Bay. Info at cleaningcommandosllc.com or call 813-750-0550, 813-750-0550. Cleaning Commandos, Consumer Quarterback Show. Looking for a venue to host your next business or family event? Make it Largo Event Center. The Consumer Quarterback Show has used the Largo Event Center, and the hall and service you get is fantastic. Over 8,500 square feet of meeting space, perfect for events, expos, and trade shows. Upstairs offers space for smaller meetings and groups to include use of their lounge and game room. Plenty of room outside for car shows or food truck events and concerts. Largo Event Center is just west of US 19 on 126th Avenue. For booking and details, visit largoeventcenter.com. That's largoeventcenter.com. Or call Guy at 727-776-3442.
You're listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Online at consumerqb.com. Brandon is Tampa Bay's #1 consumer advocate for real estate and financial advice. Call Brandon today at 813-917-1894.
And we're back. Brandon Rhymes here, Consumer Quarterback Show. 4823 Ebbtide Lane is one of our penthouse suites available for sale. We've got this one in Port Richey. This is Waterfront Beauty, unit number 405, and it's overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. Just a gorgeous property. 4823 Ebbtide Lane in Port Richey, number 405. Got about 1,100 square feet overlooking the Cody River with a huge balcony and sun deck out there, about 30 by 25 sun deck. Beautiful property. And you can see all of our listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com. And we have our feel-good story.
Tell me something good.
All right, so this is about the birthday kid that was hit by a car. They threw him a party, and it's over in Polk County out of Bartow. 9 years old. He had to be airlifted to the hospital on Saturday the 5th, and he had 2 rods inserted into his legs, and he was an active kid on the water, and he's quoted as saying he was over there playing. He was grilling for his birthday, and a guy was driving way too fast with his headlights off. He could have hit multiple kids. So there's your PSA announcement. Stop driving fast through neighborhoods. It's not that important to get there 2 minutes faster. So when he's asked for what he wanted for his birthday, he said to take the cast off. So the community came together, law enforcement officers, firefighters, bike and car club members all packed together and drove through the neighborhood and by Travis's house to wish him a happy birthday. And it was organized by Will Dunn of Take a Kid Fishing. There you have it. There's our feel-good story. We've got attorney Carmika Rubin in the studio. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Glad to be back.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for coming in. And let's talk a little bit about contracts today, contracts in business. It's very important that you outline what you want in writing. And also sometimes verbal can be considered as a contract too. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. So you know what? The thing about contracts, and I absolutely love contracts. I believe that, if when you look around, contracts are everywhere.
Right.
In your personal life, in your business life. And a contract is simply when there's an offer made, accepted, and some type of consideration is made. Now, when it comes to whether it's written or oral, they're both contracts.
Right.
If you and I agree, we exchange money, that is a contract. Now, it's more difficult to prove in court
right.
what the terms and conditions are. That's why I encourage contracts to be in written format. But it is a contract and it's enforceable.
Yeah. And that's where you get in trouble if you're just relying on verbal, he said, she said. Of course, you can't really prove it, and then you try to figure out how to prove that. But, so when you're in business, you definitely need to have a contract.
You do. And it really doesn't depend. It really does depend, or really doesn't depend on what type of business. Every business needs to have some form of contracts, whether it's your lease, commercial leasing, you want to have that in writing. Whether it's dealing with different vendors, you want to make sure that all expectations are in written format, because when there's a discrepancy, when there's a dispute, now is, like you said, he said, she said, and in court, they do listen. But if you're not a very credible person, but you were telling the truth that one time,
right,
you may not win in court.
Right.
So businesses definitely need contracts dealing with different entities. If you're merging businesses, if you're buying a business, everything comes back to what is written in black and white.
Yeah, especially so when you're forming a business, that's one of the most important times to have that meeting of the mind, so to speak, when you're forming the business.
Yes, and yes, because you're happy. Everyone is in happy la land. It's like, we're going to get out here. We're going to come together. We're going to make some money, some revenue. And that is when you want to talk about the things that are hard to discuss.
Yeah.
Because I always joke and I say, well, you're going to need an attorney before, during, or after. Right? Although you don't need an attorney for a contract, and for those who like to go out and get it on their own, you go and get it, read it, understand it, but don't tweak it too much.
Yeah.
Because you may take out a provision that you may find yourself needing later on. Yeah. So forming a business, you need to have everything written out. If it's you, 2, 3, 4 other people, have a meeting of the minds, signed and dated.
Yeah, that's right. And we're talking with attorney Carmika Rubin here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. And when you look at the reasons why people the problem is, I see, in other words, is when people get into trouble, it's like they're rushing through things, right?
Yes.
It seems like that's the number one thing. They're just, I just wanted to sign it real fast. I had to move on. We had to get this deal going. I had this, whatever that scenario, fill in the blank, right? It's like, I had to get this deal in process because time was of the essence. Mm-hmm. But I think that's one of the key mistakes people make, is they don't fully read or fully understand or have an attorney review the agreement or the contract before they enter into it.
Exactly. I recommend people to put money aside for their legal affairs.
Yeah.
Have it professionally drafted up. If there's a discrepancy, or if there's you're saying this but is reading that, have an attorney to review it. You are so on target that people rush through. I just want to get the money, get the business going, but they don't think about the structure. They don't think about what can go wrong, because everything in their eyes are going right because they are rushing through the process. But I highly recommend. Put money to the side. Spend, $3, $4, $5, $8, $1,000, whatever. Have an attorney to look it over. One of the other things that I tell people to do when they're reading contracts is to make sure that what they're saying match what is written.
Because they're having, they're one way that they remembered or think about the program or the contract was different from what was actually on paper, but they just assumed that this is what they talked about. This is what the attorney put in writing, or the other party put in writing.
Exactly. And then some people, you'll have a conversation, and then you will anticipate that it's in writing. Well, but it says here, but no, don't worry about that. No, you need to worry.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
need to do your own homework, because when it's time to enforce that provision, no one is going back to what's said. They're going back to what you agreed to.
That's right.
In writing, in black and white, whether it was an email, a text message, or an actual paper version, it is still an enforceable contract.
So it's very topical then that we talk about mediation and arbitration, because it's sometimes in those agreements you're going to pre-agree to have these certain processes in place.
Oh, let me tell you, I have so many clients that are disappointed because they want to get right in front of the judge. Yep. I want the judge to hear my story.
Right.
And I'm like, especially in a residential, when you're building homes, those clauses are like right there, bold, all caps. Before you go to court, you must arbitrate or you must mediate.
Right.
And this is by agreement. And I'm like, you signed this.
Right.
You're come to me, but you can't jump to me as an attorney to jump and file the lawsuit. We have to take your claim through arbitration, which can be binding or non-binding, but it all depends on what is in the contract.
Yeah.
And they want that house, they want that property, they want that vehicle, they want this particular item so bad. But I'm like, pause, take your time, take 3-5 minutes, read what you're agreeing to. Contracts can be amended.
Right.
Most don't want to, but they can be.
And then, so the difference between mediation and arbitration.
Yes. So arbitration is when you have a neutral party who is going to listen to both sides, review the evidence, and then they're going to make a decision. If it's binding, that means that's it. It's a done deal. You can only go to court to enforce the decision. If it's non-binding, that means, well, we tried it. Now let's see what a judge is going to say.
Yep.
Mediation is a third party, but they're not there to make you agree. They're not there to, they want you to agree, but they can't make you.
Right.
They're not making a final decision after listening to both sides. They're literally saying, let me be a peacemaker.
Yeah.
This is their position. This is their position. Maybe I can persuade the two to listen to each other. And the best mediation is when both parties walk away not happy.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
No one's happy.
Yeah, I've heard divorce cases where they had a certain amount of number they had to pay, but the person came in with all coins, and they're like, oh, here you go.
Yeah. Speaking of paying, keep in mind that arbitration and mediation cost in addition to attorney fees. And if you are a business, you have to retain counsel.
Right.
So don't forget you're paying attorney fees and the arbitration fees and the arbitrators fees or mediators fees.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind when you're signing on the dotted line of what it's going to cost you if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're talking with attorney Carmika Rubin here, rubinslaw.com. And talk a little bit about divorce, because your divorce or even like a recent success story. What is something going on right now that you've done for somebody out there, like contract maybe or divorce?
So it's funny because you're like, well, how can you have a divorce case and it's a happy ending? Well, there sometimes people get married and they realize that they can no longer stay married, they can no longer stay together, but they've ascertained so many different assets and they have children. So I would say my greatest success story is that we were able to have a successful marital settlement agreement the home, the children, they were not at 100% happy, but they were able to live with the agreement afterwards.
Right.
So that's my greatest success stories, when we can go to mediation, agree, and both parties are willing to live by it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get everything in every situation, and you might be a little bit unhappy, but hey, you give some, you take some, you know, the one of my favorite books, Never Split the Difference, he says, you should never split the difference, and it's like wearing a brown shoe and a black shoe, but it's a very detailed book, but it's very interesting about negotiation and how it plays out. And the key that I tell, when I coach too, is about just, asking open-ended questions, trying to find a middle ground, trying to understand the reasons why, because the reasons why they want something might be something that you say, hey, well, yeah, I can understand that. I can make that happen here. But
open and flexibility.
That's right. Check her out online, rubinslaw.com. Carmika Rubin on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And we want you to please go out there and consider committing a random act of kindness. Do something kind for one another and be a force for good in the community. We'll see you next time. ConsumerQB.com.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Whether it's real estate, consumer, or financial advice, let Brandon call your next play. Call Brandon Rhymes at 813-917-1894. That's 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com. And join us next time for the Consumer Quarterback Show.